Okay, fast forward. It's the next day. It's actually in the evening time. I was supposed to start my cook this morning, but my daughter invited us out to the river to have a picnic, a barbecue. It was pretty cool, and we got to tube around the river a little bit. And so my brisket sat in the marinade a little bit longer than it should have, but we'll try it out. We'll see how it tastes. Um, I didn't actually film. I trimmed the brisket up, cut off some decal fat. What decal fat is, you'll see that if you buy a whole packer, a whole brisket. It's really hard fat. You can't mistake it. There's no other fat like it. It's really hard. And I just cut that completely off because it's just no reason to have it on there. It doesn't render. It's just gonna make your brisket. It's just gonna take away from the cook of your brisket. So what I did was I cut that off. I trimmed down the fat cap. You'll see that whenever you buy a brisket, there's usually a fat cap on one side, and I usually trim mine down to about 1/4 inch. And basically, what that does is still keep some fat on to protect the meat while it's cooking, and usually it renders off pretty good, and it gets a nice crust on it. So we call it bark, and that's when you put the rub on it, and it kind of melds with the fat and the meat itself on one side. So right now I went ahead and put 3 stages of rub on this on one side. I'm going to flip it over and put 3 stages on the fat side. Some people say, well, what's the purpose of putting it on the fat side? It's all just going to melt off anyway. Yeah, I cook fat side up. I know that there's a big argument, fat side up, fat side down. It's all to your preference. And I think it has a lot to do with what kind of cooker you're cooking in as well. So if you have a fire heat source that's coming from the bottom, then you might want to cook fat side down. Mine is a offset stick burner, which means it has a cylinder, cooking chamber, and then a firebox cylinder on the left side that the fire's in, and then the heat and smoke goes through the meat cylinder or the cooking chamber, and we'll cook this brisket up and smoke it. But I cook fat side up. It just has always seemed to work for me. I've tried fat side down, and honestly, it came out a little bit drier. But you can look that up on the internet. Anyway, so I'm going to flip this over and basically put the rub on it. You don't rub the rub onto it. You just sprinkle it on there. If you want to pat it, you could do that. And then you could do your next stage of rub. Now, you want to do 1 or 2 stages, and then let it rest a little bit. It'll start to sweat. As you can see on this one, the meat is starting to, the rub is starting to get moist, and that's called sweating. So that means the meat is now absorbing the rub, and it's starting to get into the meat, which is good. Then I'm going to flip it over on the fat side, and then I'm going to put this brisket on the smoker. So, okay, well, we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to do it for about 6 hours on the smoker. And after that, a brisket really doesn't need much more than that because it's going to take on all the smoke it needs to. And then I'm going to wrap it with aluminum foil and finish it off in the oven. And you're going to say, well, why would you finish it off in the oven? So, like I said, after 6 hours, the brisket is not going to need any more smoke. Honestly, it's just going to, just pretty much take on too much smoke, I think. And what I'm looking for when I wrap it is to get the brisket tenderized in a consistent temperature. And I don't see the need to burn up all my wood when it's wrapped up, when it's not going to take on any more smoke anyway. It's just going to waste wood. Again, I'm going to wrap it in aluminum foil and put it in the oven and finish it out there because it's not going to take on any more smoke. So we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so we're going in the backyard now. I don't know if you can see me, but this is my smoker right here. Let me put on my light. Let's see here. I guess it's light enough, but anyway, I've got my temperature set right here on my little gauge. It's about 225, between 225 and 250, and I'm going to smoke this sucker for 6 hours, like I said, and then at about 225 for 6 hours, and then I'm gonna wrap it and put it in the oven because, like I said, once it's wrapped, there's no need to burn up any more wood because it won't take on any more smoke anyway because it's wrapped. So, let me get a look there. There's a brisket. There's my fire going. So we're cooking with fire now. And I use pecan wood because it doesn't have that bitter taste. And I also use maybe some mesquite just to give it a little bit of Southwest flair. But I don't intend on putting any mesquite in today. So there you go. Now my light decides to come on. Great. Alright, so maybe you can see my smoke a little bit better. Back off. And there she is, my smoker. I control the temperature on a offset stick burner with this smokestack cover. You can close it if you want less heat, open it if you want more heat, but it's doing okay right now. And same thing you could do with the door. You can open it for more heat. As you can see, the flame will start to pick up here in a second, like that. But I'm just going to keep it kind of closed because I like to control it with a smokestack and just have about the same flow going through the door, through the chamber, the wood box into the chamber, out through the smokestack. Okay, so that's my cooking method. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll check back in to see how it turns out. All right, we'll check back in later. Bye. Okay, we've got our brisket on the aluminum now, and I have 3 ingredients that I use to enhance the flavor of the brisket while it is finishing off its cook in the oven. It is Parquet squeezable liquid margarine, and then it has some honey. Okay, I'm gonna have some brown sugar. Now the key thing to remember here is you're gonna add any of the ingredients that you want to enhance your flavor profile. I like sweet heat, and I get a lot of compliments on it, and it's just a really good combination, sweet heat. So you'll hear that term in barbecue quite often. Now once I wrap this and put it in the oven, I'm going to put it inside a pan after I wrap it, because what's going to happen is the liquid, as it cooks, the mussels are going to tense up and they're going to squeeze out the juices. Okay, after that, after the cook, we're going to let it rest. So there's some important things that you need to know about brisket. If you've never heard of a stall, okay, and I mean like stalling time, around 160, 165, briskets stall. And what that means is they will not get any hotter. The only thing you could do is just push through it. I tend not to worry about it. What I do is I have a certain time I cook my briskets to and a certain temperature. Once they reach approximately 200 degrees, that's a good goal. Then your brisket is pretty much done. And that's the main thing. So if you're hitting 165 on your thermometer, 175, 180, you need to keep cooking it until it hits at least 200. I'm going to say that's a safe number. Some people say 195, some people say 205, 210. I say 200 is a good number to shoot for because it's wrapped at this point. If you wrap, what will happen is then after you're done with your cook, you're going to let it rest. That's the second thing. That's probably the most important thing after hitting that temperature, is you need to let your brisket rest for at least a minimum of an hour, if not 2. If not 3. If your guests aren't coming until 3 o'clock and your brisket's done at 12, stop the cook, leave it in the pan, in the oven, turn it off, and let it rest for those 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever. What that does, as I mentioned earlier, the muscles, when you're cooking a brisket, they tense up, they squeeze all that juice out. And then what happens is when you let it rest, the muscles then relax, and then they reabsorb that juice, and it makes it so tender. This brisket's looking pretty good. I got a really nice bark on it. So let's go ahead and I'll show you what I do. I just take some liquid margarine here. I just go around the edges. Make sure I get the edges good. And then I go kind of zigzag back and forth and make sure I get a good coverage. This fat cat looks like it rendered pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brown sugar. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. I'm just going to sprinkle it on here like such. Around the edges, on the top. And like anything else with butter and sugar, it's going to melt and then coat the entire brisket. And it's going to go down, once this is wrapped, underneath the brisket too. So you don't have to worry about doing the bottom side. You can if you want to. I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. And so we got a nice coating of liquid butter or margarine, some brown sugar. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drizzle honey all the way around it. Doesn't have to be like pancakes and syrup. Just enough to put some evenly around the brisket. Alright, and then got that going on. So, it should be good to go now. What I'm going to do is wrap it. Okay. Doesn't have to be real tight, but just tight enough to get a good wrap. Okay, and that's wrapped. So what you're going to need to do at this point is these aluminum pans that I used earlier to show you what the brisket looked like. You set that right inside, just like that. Okay. Or some brisket cooks, they put it, they don't wrap, they just put it right in an aluminum foil pan, and then they do their thing, put all their ingredients, and then cover it up, and finish their cook that way. I just tend to wrap because I feel like it gets a good, even cook, and gets the ingredients throughout the meat, and then when I let it rest, it's good to go. So, alright, we're going to check back in after this cook. I'm going to put this thing to bed at about 200 degrees, and because that's what I'm shooting for, is 200 degrees, and we'll check on it tomorrow. So, good night, y'all. Okay, so before I went to church today, I got up this morning, and I basically worked out, and then I checked the temperature, and it hit all the marks on the temperature of this brisket. And now it's the moment of truth. We got back from church. I let it rest. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, you could just let it rest for however long you want to. It's going to reabsorb that juice that it put off before, the au jus, and then it's going to reabsorb that and make it more tender. So let's take a look and see what we got. All right, we're open this up. And the smell is wonderful. Alright, look at all that juice. And there you go. So now it's been resting. It should be ready to cut. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out and set it on a cutting board, and I'm going to separate the point from the flat and start slicing this up into portions so we can eat it. And then of course I'm going to portion it out for future meals for me and my wife. And then I'll vacuum seal them and put them in the freezer. Alright, let's see how it tastes. We'll check back in later. Okay, so I've got my cutting board out, and I took the brisket out of the pan. I put it on the cutting board. And what I tend to do is separate the point from the flat. And we're going to try to do that now. Usually there is a line of fat that runs. You should be able to just slice right through it. And that's what I just did. Slice right through it. And now you can see how juicy this is. And there's a nice layer of fat that has rendered. And my wife is waiting in the wings to try this brisket. So we're going to see how that goes. Now again, the point is the fattier cut, which is this bump that you'll find on your briskets. And then the flat is the type that you'll serve mostly for leaner cuts. And you'll see that in the restaurant. And see how this looks here. Looks pretty good. Yeah, looks pretty good. It's got a nice fold to it, nice thin layer of fat, and it doesn't look overcooked or undercooked. Let's see, pulls apart nicely. Only thing it's still got the nice bark on it. I like a little bit of fat, so let's try it, see how it tastes. Wow. Melts in your mouth. Absolutely delicious. So, I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to finish this piece off because it's delicious. The reason I'm not speaking is because I'm enjoying. Alright, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is my brisket cut. A lot of people take the point. It's called the burn ends, as you can see, because they're dark. They'll cut them up into cubes. I still got a little jiggle to them. Some people will lightly sauce them and then put them in the pan and cook them up on the grill. Some people just eat them like it is. I'm not going to make burn ends. I'm just going to eat it like it is. I'm going to basically vacuum seal portions of this for future meals. That's a great deal about buying a larger cut of meat. If there's just two of you, it's just me and my wife, so I'll make a big brisket, but it provides several meals after I portion it out and vacuum seal it. Okay, thank you for coming and enjoying. Hope you enjoyed it while watching my brisket cook. Y'all have a blessed day. Thanks. Bye.